Okay. Now, Percy, do you have any skin sensitivities or allergies or anything? Okay. That's always the first question I ask people. You never know. Now, when we started doing these makeups, we actually initially tried using appliances, vein transfers, and it wasn't practical for what we were going to do.
And probably not quick enough.
Exactly. Well, you could put them on fast. Problem was getting them off. At the end of the day, you're working with underage kids. You don't have the time to, really clean them up. It's like get them out the door. This is a astringent. It's called Kiehl's Blue Astringent, and this is basically just to help take any oils off the skin, so the makeup's going to stick better. Worked with an actor years ago, a guy named Derek Mears. Anybody familiar with him? Okay. Yeah, he was the last Jason in the last Friday the 13th movie. He'd done a bunch of stuff. Great guy, but he suffers from a skin disorder called alopecia, so he has no body hair. But also, along with that, his skin's extremely sensitive. So we couldn't use makeup removers on him. Like you use a makeup remover, he would literally break out in pussing sores. It was horrible. So what we ended up doing is we took Kiehl's Blue Astringent and 99% alcohol, 50-50 mix, and that's how we got his makeups off. And the best part is by the end of the show, between using that and this skin aftercare product called EDAP, his skin was actually better than when he came to us. So it worked out. It was okay. Now, forgive me, one more time. Name? Percy. Now, what we're going to be doing on Percy today is we're going to be turning her into a demon. Now, like I said, these makeups initially, we had to do them in about 20 minutes. And we tried using transfers in the beginning. It wasn't so much for the look as more for the way they would catch the light. You'd see somebody coming down the hallway with the light and you could see the dimension from the veins. It looked really cool, but the problem was you're working on underage kids. You got a very tight amount of time before they pumpkin on you. Anybody hear that term before? Okay, yeah, when you go to set, kids pumpkin. I love that term. They usually put a pumpkin on the call sheet. At any rate, because of our time restrictions, we had to eliminate the veins. But we're going to do those on you today. So, now I have another question. Is anybody here familiar with 3D transfers? You guys work with those here? Okay. Okay, very cool. Yeah, these were originally developed for a film, God, I can't remember exactly what year it was, but it was for a film called Master and Commander: Far Side of the World. And we had to put whip marks on Russell Crowe. So we were experimenting with different products, like what could we use that would be waterproof, and that's how eventually we came up with transfers. The only problem was we didn't know their limitations yet. So on set, Russell liked to work out. The only problem was we weren't really quite sure what the limitations for the transfers were yet. So Russell would like to work out on set, and he was usually in a sweater, and they were usually black. So he would sweat, build up a good layer, and then he'd take it off, and all his beautiful scar transfers would be black. So we actually ended up not showing those on that show. But it was a good start, and then we finally went on to perfect them for Passion of the Christ, and then the first Pirates of the Caribbean. So, and now they're all over the place. Generally speaking, I would try to pre-prep as much as I can before doing the makeup. That way Percy's not sitting in the chair bored staring at me. But the problem with transfers is if you stick them to paper too early, they'll actually flatten out. So you kind of need to do it just before. It's actually a thickened Pros-Aid. And you guys probably work with Pros-Aid, right? Yeah. It's one of the best glues there is. Tenacious as all heck, but a good glue. In fact, when we were doing Fear the Walking Dead for K&B, the makeups, the zombie makeups, once again, it was a time factor. We had to do the makeups in about 45 minutes. So we would do the makeups using a thinned version of Pros-Aid on the foam, and we would thin it down literally to the point where it would barely hold, because you could experiment with it. And the idea was you'd want the appliance to stick, but at the end of the day be able to rip it off quick. Not rip it off, you know what I mean, remove it quickly. Time is always a factor. In fact, when you guys get into the business, you're going to discover that if a makeup takes too long, a lot of time it's going to get cut. So they'll come right up to you, the producers, the ADs, and say, how long is this going to take? Can we get it down any shorter? because if it takes too long, they're going to chuck it in lieu of something else. Do you guys do transfers in the school?
We do some transfers.
Excellent. Yeah, they're not good for everything, but for this kind of stuff, they're perfect. All right, let's see. And I'll do one on the other side too, so you guys can see it in the back. Feel like we should have some music or something going in the background. The very first one, teeth and props, but then I went on to do number 4, and I was in the union by that point, so I was actually doing makeup on that one. The actor I took care of was a gentleman by the name of Daniel LeBoyer. He was one of the big zombie pirate voodoo demon guys. That was a fun show. It was like a summer in Hawaii, and we're sitting out in the middle of the ocean on a pirate ship, and it's like, I can't believe I'm on a pirate ship. And I'm getting paid for this. Don't stop dreaming. I'm a kid from Flint, Michigan, and if I can do it, you guys can do it. Yeah, right. Now, have you seen this show yet?
I've seen a little bit of it.
Okay.
I'm really bad at watching TV shows by myself. I never finish anything.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I just finished the first season myself because if I'm working on something, I generally don't watch them. Mm-hmm. But it's a good show. If you guys haven't seen Nosferatu yet, check it out. It's fun. It's a little disturbing with the whole Christmas slant, but it's a good show.
What is it on?
All right.
Showing your work off.
You know, I'd worked for Tom years ago in Pittsburgh, and I made teeth there, and that's something I'd like to do. I've always liked to do. In fact, my company is based around that. I made my first pair of vampire fangs when I was 4. So I was a weird kid, you know, running around with candle wax and a towel pinned to my neck. But in fact, my mother had the picture somewhere. So, but I like it all, to answer your question. Sorry, I'm a bit rambling, but I like to make teeth. I like to work in the labs, but I get itchy and bored if I'm doing only that for too long. Paling you down. Actually, no. I'm going to do it in reverse. Okay, basically right now what we have on her are 2 transfers down by that nerve bundle that you get behind your ear. Now what I'm going to do is we're going to paint veins from the transfers out. And I'm going to paint these first because then what I'm going to do is I want to pale her down. Okay, the very first film I ever worked on was this really low-budget bad film called Cold Hearts. And it was a vampire movie, and it was actually done out of Tom's shop back when he still had it. I was attending art school here at the Art Institute of Pittsburgh, and I met Tom through a mutual friend, John Shrevka. You remember John, Jerry? Yeah, he was great. John I was a tattoo artist before I got into makeup effects, and long story with that. But John wanted to learn about tattooing. I wanted to learn more makeup effects stuff, so we kind of traded knowledge. And he goes, hey, I know this guy over in, over here. You want to meet him? And I'm like, sure. And all of a sudden I walk in, there's Tom Savini. Well, probably like you guys, from the time I could remember, Tom Savini was like the man. Especially growing up in Michigan, watching Friday the 13th and Creepshow. Loved those movies. So needless to say, I was a little dumbstruck. But yeah, it was basically Tom got called for a project, and he wasn't really doing films anymore. But he had a couple of guys that were his proteges, and I got the call and said, hey, you want to come work on this? So we did a movie. First color I'm going to use is a vein tone.
Oh man, that's my favorite color, vein tone.
You know, it's funny you say that because it's Johnny Depp's favorite color.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
okay.
He likes the smell of it. In fact, he would want to add that to, like, I work with this makeup artist named Joel Harlow. He was Johnny Depp's personal for a number of years. And I got to work with him directly on Johnny for a movie called Dark Shadows.
Oh,
Yeah. Oh, you know that one?
cool. Good movie.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a two-man makeup, so I got to tag team with him for 7 months. All right. Okay. Now the airbrush I'm using, this is a Iwata Micron Custom. It's really nice for doing really small vein work. Actually, there you go. I'm gonna bring this down here. We're gonna go.
Are there different size needles for that, Iwata?
Not this one. There are different needles depending on the airbrush you're using. But this one, I forget what number this one is. I don't know, but it's one of the finest ones. Now, when you're painting veins, God, I wish you guys can see. When you paint these, you don't want to be too deliberate with it. You almost want to, put a little tremor in your hand every now and then. Bring the airbrush closer, bring it back, because the tighter you get to it, the tighter your line's going to be. So for instance, you get right on top of it, it's really tight, but you want to kind of keep it spidery, keep it moving. I'm sorry? Oh God, that's a tough one. Let me think. I get asked that a lot, but it's hard. The first Frankenstein is one of my favorites because it inspired me. Let's see what else. Friday the 13th, Part 4. That's one of my favorites. In fact, that was a geek moment for me because working at Tom's shop, you walk in, you're looking around at all this stuff, and the Jason head is sitting on a shelf in the corner with the machete still in it. You're just like, And he's like, yeah, I know, most of my stuff's garbage. I'm like, are you kidding? This is a museum. Don't even talk like that. I'm sorry? Oh, God. On Teen Wolf, probably the Kanema from season 2. You like that one? Oh, thank you. Yeah, those were fun. Thank you. Yeah, that was fun. We actually, for the Were Jaguar, we made stencils. We made vacuum form stencils of her body and would cut them out for the patterns so that we could do her spots every day. So that was fun. And Jill she was just great. I actually did Christian's makeup every day for 54 days. Yeah, I was his makeup artist on that one. Yep, I'm going to actually come around here a little bit. Keep your eyes closed for me.
Mm-hmm.
Notes. Take notes and look at the makeup. Your first few applications are going to be your longest. Be sure to take notes. See where you can maybe cut corners. Not quality. You want to keep your quality there. But maybe you don't need 7 layers of paint. Maybe you can get away with 4. And also, don't be precious with it. You got to know when to stop. Because I've seen people do a really good job and get really meticulous, and then all of a sudden the makeup goes muddy because they just kept overworking it too much. So set yourself a time limit, try to stick with it, and when you can knock the time down, you can. Like on Vice, for instance, with Christian's makeup, it started out at about 4 hours. By the end of it, we got it down to about 2.5. Yeah, and that was for his most extreme looks. So, carrying these veins here. How's that feel? Not too bad?
No, that's perfectly fine.
Excellent. Yeah, you're doing good keeping your eye closed. I generally run this one at about 20. Okay. All right. Almost done with the vein work. Actually, this is just the first pass of veins. After we do this, I go in with another color called Capillary, and wherever a vein meets up, where they converge, I will darken that because it gives it more of a dimensional look. You're gonna be fine. Oh yeah. Yep. Tyler was great. I truly love the guy. He's a bit fidgety. Yeah, he has a hard time sitting still. But no, he was really cool. That whole crew were nice people. That was a hard show. The hours were ridiculous. What they required from us was ridiculous. As far as, I mean, TV schedules are tough. Like on a film, you might be lucky and get a month or two to build. On TV, you're lucky if you get a week. So, oh, this is Activator. Yeah, basically what Activator is, it's a perfume grade alcohol. It's you can use 99%, but Activator is a little easier when you're spraying around the face. Yeah. And on you when you do this every day. So, but you're the important one. We want you comfortable. Now what I'm going to do is, I don't want to airbrush her at this point. Because when you spray with an airbrush, it atomizes and it's really fine and it looks airbrushed. We want to create a more natural look. So what we do is, you turn the airbrush down, and it takes a little practice getting used to it, but this is a Pache H. You don't have to depress the plunger all the way. With practice, you can actually push it down just a little bit, just to get a little bit of air, and it spits the makeup. It's more of a spatter technique. This is something I learned, 25 years ago, and it's a technique that has stuck with me ever since. Oh, absolutely. The day I know everything, I'm going to quit. Yeah, I love learning new techniques. And that's the fun thing about working with people, is you never know when you're going to learn something that you've never seen before. If that gets to be too fumey, just let me know. Okay? I'll let you.
So what are you doing right now with the spatter technique?
What I'm doing is I have a color called Ghastly. It's like just a pale flesh. And what I'm doing is I'm doing two things. I'm knocking her skin tone down to take the healthy glow out of her face. Yes, you have a healthy glow. I don't want to hear it. But also what I'm doing is I'm knocking the veins down so they're not quite so punchy. Because, go ahead and turn your head for me. As you can see, this vein is rather dark. And it's cool, but it's a little too much. I want to take that down a bit. Exactly. Yeah, everything we're doing is a cheat. Yes, it's a completely different palette. In fact, a lot of makeup artists, they don't realize that. It's like where on a lighter complexion, you're going to use more pink tones, but on darker complexion, you're going to use more oranges and purples and yellows. A good example is I've seen people take people of darker complexions and try to turn them into zombies. and they'll start spraying them with the same things I'm using on her right now. They tend to go a little gray and ashy. There's colors, there's one called actually Corpse Yellow. This is a great tone for darker skin complexion because it will pale you out, but yet you don't go ashy and gray. You know. I did a stint in the Navy for 4 years. That's where I learned how to tattoo. And that was really good because it showed me that, you know, there was more to the world than just my little corner. And that's, when I got out of the service, that's what gave me the guts to move to Pittsburgh and pursue this. And then it was just a natural progression, you know, you go where the work is. I managed to find a couple of jobs working here for Tom, and that was great, but it was like you're always looking for the next job, and there weren't that many. And all my friends were moving to Los Angeles, and I had a beat-up 94 GL Metro and $1,600 in my pocket from selling some of my tattoo equipment, and I moved. So it was a little scary. Okay. You're looking wonderful. Are you feeling like a little demon kid yet?
I always feel like a little demon kid.
I like that about you. Now this color is like kind of a reddish purple, and it's basically just to make you look diseased. Anybody here ever see a movie called The Exorcism of Emily Rose? Yes. Okay, cool. It's funny how that one kind of faded out. I actually did Jennifer's makeup for that show, and this color I mixed for her. That's why we call it Possessed. So, cool. Now we're going to switch to our next color. I'm sorry? Well, you want to make friends with everybody, but the producers are the one that generally have the purse strings. So if they want something, you know, a lot of times the director will be like, oh my God, we want to do this thing and it's going to be amazing. And then the producer's like, back it up, buddy. There's only so much time and so much money. Jerry knows what I'm talking about. No, but here's a good tip. When you're on set, and you will be, always make friends with the ADs, the assistant directors, especially the second AD, because they're the ones that do the call sheets every day. And if you get on a good side with the second AD, they will talk to you in advance, say, hey, we need to do these 9 makeups tomorrow. How much time do you need? Always communicate with your production crew. I mean, even doing that, you never know when you're going to get a surprise. So. Okay. What I'm doing right now is this color is called Capillary or Capillary, depending on if you're working with an English makeup artist. I've heard it both ways. Basically, it's just to add to the vein work. How you doing? You doing good?
Yep. This is nothing.
That can be very difficult with certain producers and directors is they won't know what they want, but they'll know what they don't want. So you'll do 50 different design concepts, and they'll all be wrong. And then they'll usually circle back around to the first one. So.
For the Hellhound, how much of that was CGI compared? Because I know like the phase with like the lava or the fire and the like sparks were, but like I couldn't find like good pictures of it. Like,
Of which one?
the Hellhound.
Oh, the Hellhound?
Yeah.
Believe it or not, he was almost all practical. Yep.
Just where the lights.
Yeah. What we did was it was transfers, and we sculpted these cracks on his body, and Jeff was like, make him pretty. Whatever you do, make him pretty. So we sculpted the cracks to kind of conform to his muscles. And then there's this acrylic paint you can get. They're called Wildfires, and they were developed in the 80s, and a makeup artist by the name of Rob Bottin had used them numerous times in the past. So we kind of looked back and says, well, because they wanted lava, but they didn't want to spend any money on CG. So what we did was we painted all the cracks with this wildfire paint, and then you just stand back with a black light and wave it, and it would glow. So whenever you see him on camera, that's not digital, that's all practical. In fact, I think you could probably still get wildfires. If you can't get them on, like at Michael's or any other art store, you can probably find them online. Yeah, they're great. And it was funny after a point. Sorry to keep stopping. Because I'll get right with you. I just want to say this one thing. The thing about the wildfires is they ended up bringing in a black light, and we would just kind of pass our hands in front of it to get the light to move. But the grips got technical, so they took, and I say technical in a funny way, they made big cardboard hands, like 2-foot hands, and they would just wave the hands back and forth. Cool. Okay, veins are mapped out, and I'm just going to knock a few of them down here and there where the makeup looks a little rough to me.
What was your first screen credit?
Probably Cold Hearts, that first film. But my first LA screen credit was from a movie called Bicentennial Man with Robin Williams.
So you worked with Steve Johnson?
Well, actually, I didn't work with Steve on that particular show. There was a couple of shops for that one. It was Greg Canham did all the age makeups, and that's where I started. And Steve did all the robot suits. I worked with Steve years later on Blade 2. Yeah. Okay. Excellent. All right, next thing we're going to do is a little bit of contouring on her and sink her eyes down. She needs to look like she's been on a 3-day bender. So. Or you've been doing your projects for the last 2 nights.
I've been up for 24 hours now, so.
Okay, well there you go. So it shouldn't take a whole lot. Shouldn't take too much. Yeah, that's another thing I'll say to you guys. Don't let the work take over your life. Have a life. I mean, I love what I do. It is me. But to the point where after a while I started not being real happy about it because it was just from one job to the next. So I actually got back into mask making, which is how I got started in teeth, teeth mask making. And it kind of sparked the kid in me. So always try to do something outside of your work. I mean, it can be still related to your work. Just experiment, do other things. Keep yourself well-rounded just for your own mental health. Okay. Go ahead and close your eyes. There we go.
So has there been any regret on the things that people told you? Like, is your context in kids is like drunk people?
There's a few. Number one was Tom, and I'm not saying that just because I'm at his school. I truly mean that. Tom, he seemed like a real guy that made it to me. I respected that. And he wasn't in the mix. He was on his own, figuring things out. Him, Jack Pierce, for the first Frankenstein, Wolfman, Mummy, love those. Roy Ashton out of England, did a lot of the Hammer films. Dick Smith too, great guys. But to me, the ones that weren't like the main ones were the ones that I kind of looked up to because they seemed more, what's the word I'm looking for?
Realistic.
Authentic. Well, not even so much that, it's just I could relate to them more because I didn't come from California. I didn't, I wasn't born, around in an artistic family. Like I said, my family built cars. And there's nothing wrong with that. I appreciated it, but like I said, I was just a weird kid. Okay. So now I'm just using a little bit of cream makeup to do a little bit of contouring in her eyes. And then one of the last things we do is because, she's in Christmas land, she's supposed to be cold, I'll do a little bit of makeup around her nose too, just to make her look like she's been out in the cold. And I don't know if you guys can see it up there, but I'm not putting my brush directly in my makeup. I always scoop it out and put it on a little palette, because you never know when you might get somebody that might have, you know, like something. You don't want to give your actor pink eye.
I totally have AIDS.
Really? Me too. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's just a little bit of, you know, good housekeeping maintenance. Okay, nice. Now at this point, I would send her off to hair department and they would take care of her hair. But since we don't have a hair department here, we will do a little bit of work.
You can put it in my eyebrows if you'd like as well.
Thank you. Just a little bit on your high points. We don't want to go too crazy. Have you ever put some frost on you? You're fine. I'm going to use some finer stuff. The only problem is I have this stuff called flexor growth, and most of it leaked into my kit over the trip, even after I sealed it up really good. So what I'm going to do is deepen the teeth, and you can just put them in your mouth, they're generic. But then, you ever get friendly plastic here from like the art stores? You can use that to fit it.
To mold it.
Yeah, fit to your
Yeah.
mouth.
Like polymorph too.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. I'm halfway, so I do a lot of stuff.
Well, good. Then once you get these teeth, they'll be yours and you can fit them.
Oh, thank you. You're very welcome.
And they are actual teeth that I made for the show. Never worn, so they're yours. Right. We're just about there. Okay, we're just about done. Generic teeth for her that she's just going to put in her mouth, and she gets to keep them so she can fit them to herself later. So, nice big smile. Yeah, these.
Oh man.
And at this point, you have a demon kid. Merry Christmas.
I'm trying so hard to say that.
Tell you what, you haven't even seen yourself, so let's.
Oh wow! I look like my grandpa.
Yeah, see it?
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to go ahead and check them out? Yes.
So, do you know what size needle is? Because I have a Pache and I have the 5, the 3, and the 1. So, would the 1 be the best for the bands?
Yes.
I love air brushing.